Welcome to all you listeners out there. This is Comic Book Central, where comic books come to life. The world's first podcast devoted exclusively to in-depth interviews with the talented folks who bring comics to life in film, television, animation, video games, podcasts, and beyond. I am your host, Joe Stuber. Thank you so much for dropping by the lair today for part 4 of my adventure at TerrifiCon. That is Connecticut's #1 comics and pop culture convention. We are well into revisiting my Q&As with the cool celebs that were guests of honor at TerrifiCon this year. Today, a fantastic actor you know from Lost, The Flash, Saving Private Ryan, many more projects. You will hear from Jeremy Davies today. Now, if you want to meet these celebrities like Jeremy up close and personal, you want to make your plans for TerrifiCon 2026. That's going to take place August 7th through the 9th. Tickets are on sale now at TerrifiCon.com. Make your plans, get your tickets. Be sure to tell them Stuberman sent you. One quick programming note. I recently celebrated the 12th anniversary of Comic Book Central, so happy anniversary to me, yay! My anniversary special is going to go online right after I finish up my TerrifiCon episodes, so if you want to get an anniversary greeting to me, or if you want to tell me your favorite guests from the past year of the show, or do both, that'd be great. You still have time. Drop me a line, joe@comicbookcentral.net, or you can leave a voicemail at the website, comicbookcentral.net. Always love to hear from you listeners out there. I can play those audio clips on the show. Just click that voicemail toggle on the right-hand side of the homepage. Yeah, comicbookcentral.net. I'll get your messages on that upcoming 12th anniversary special. For those of you who've already done it, thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and thanks for sending in those greetings. All right, no time to waste. Big show today. Right around the corner is my chat with Jeremy Davies. Welcome, everybody, to it's the 10th anniversary of TerrifiCon. We are having a blast. We have kicked things off in style tonight here in the panel room. If you were with us on the previous panel, I will say you heard from an Emmy-winning actor. I can't think of a better way to close out the final night of TerrifiCon Q&As with yet another Emmy-winning actor. You know him from films like Saving Private Ryan, Solaris, TV shows like Justified and Lost. Let's hear it for Jeremy Davies.
Would you like a water?
I have my water. That one is yours. We've taken care of it. You're very generous. You're very generous. No.
Sir, do you want a water? Okay.
You are the most generous celebrity I've ever met in my entire... No one's ever offered water before.
Well, that's debatable, but thank you.
You are known for some fantastic TV roles over the years. I have to ask you, though, is this true or false? Did I read this correctly? You were raised without a television. Were you raised without watching television?
That is true. Yeah.
Okay. How did what was behind that with this? I mean, did your parents just sort of like not want that influence on you, or did you run down the street to the neighbor's house and sneak a few shows in every now and again?
Yeah, watch TV contraband. Yeah, my father, the way that he explained it, and I'm actually really grateful for it now, like multi-dimensionally grateful. The way what he always used to say is it's tranquilizing with triviality, and he was a writer, and we just read all the time. He encouraged reading and writing, and
okay,
and actually really grateful. But of course, then years later, I ended up.
That makes sense with the future question I have about Lost, but we'll get to that one
Sure.
anyway. So take us back. You were born in Traverse City, Michigan, is that correct?
Possibly.
Okay.
I don't get too much into personal details, but
We'll see what we can dig into somewhere in there.
Somewhere in North America.
This question may or may not go over well. Then let's see where it goes. True or false? Okay, I want to see. You grew up throughout. Is this possible? Like Vermont, Seattle, Oregon, Kansas, Michigan, New Orleans, Latin America, Canada, Denmark, Sweden, and the Kingdom of California. I plead ignorance. I'm not sure what the Kingdom of California is. Is any of that true, or did I just find something?
Could possibly be. I wouldn't trust me, though. I wouldn't. I've also grown up in Connecticut, too, because I'm still growing up.
Hold on, let me add that one to the list here.
I feel like I haven't grown up quite yet officially. I apologize. You guys were maybe expecting that. But,
Okay, can you walk us through any of that? Like, how does that, I moved a couple places, but it was, just like within Pennsylvania, that was about it. But
where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a place called Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Just Johnstown?
Johnstown, Pennsylvania, known for the Johnstown flood and almost nothing else, so apologies to anybody from Johnstown. But it was like, that's really all So.
Yeah, I had a really peripatetic youth because everyone thinks I'm an army brat, possibly, but there was just a lot of fragmenting in my family in a number of different ways. People splitting up and loved ones dying tragically young, etc. And so my brother and I got shipped around quite a bit.
Okay. I mean, especially with the roles that you're taking on now, I think, because your career is so varied. I mean, we'll talk about a bunch of these things, but did that sort of upbringing help out later in acting? Because with acting, you're just inhabiting role, like that person's life, whoever that person's life is for that time that you're filming. Were you able to pick up anything in those travels, or was it all just such a blur at that point?
I think so. I think it's different for everybody, every individual, of course. We all have different capacities to navigate any social situation or familial situation. And for me, I think it ultimately helped going through the experience of being thrown into completely different countercultures, cities to small towns. And you have to adapt if you don't want to get bullied for your entire life. And I think I learned to adapt sociologically. That certainly doesn't hurt as an actor, but I think there've been great actors who grew up in one place.
Right.
Great who.
When you say that adapt, though, like what did that mean to you in your life at that point? Like, what were some of the things that you had to? Because when we moved from Pennsylvania to Tennessee, I think that was such a culture shock for us. It was such a different environment. But as a kid, growing up, like, what were some of those things that you had to adapt to? Was it things in school, or just like, how do I make new friends this quick? And then all of a sudden you lose them again. They're on to another place.
Yeah, quite literally, sociologically speaking, you go to a different place and it's a different culture, even if it's just nuanced, comparing small towns. But, it's adapting to the local dialect and traditions and POV and, the politics and the social constructs. And, it's just natural, of course. We all want to fit in as a kid. And it became, I think probably to an extent, somewhat of a skill that definitely helped, because obviously acting is all about being able to imagine a character that's, I can't speak for all actors, but I was always drawn to idiosyncratic voices of characters you hadn't seen on screen, or characters you'd see initially and you think, okay, I know this character, and then the character would flip, turn a corner, and surprise you and disarm you or whatever. So
you mentioned your dad wanted you to do more reading than TV watching. Do you remember what you were grooving on growing up as a kid? What were some of the books that you were reading, and have you had a chance to work on any of those? Like, as an adaptation later in life, or would you love to? Maybe I know there's a bunch of different questions in there, but pick whichever.
You guys want to take
I know
those?
I tend to talk. I just interviewed John Wesley Shipp, so I'm like in really speed mode right now. So, let's start with the first. What were you grooving on as a kid, as far as like literature?
Well, I don't want to put our friends to sleep here. They've come out and stayed up so late already, but I did read a lot, and I'm really grateful for that. I also started writing when I was younger too.
Okay.
I started writing when I was 6 or 7. And that's been my ultimate dream, actually, is to get a chance to transition from actor to writer-director. So
okay. What have you written? Can you tell? Sort of like in this genre. Could you do a dramatic reading for us as we sit here? Yes, please, and thank you. Yes, those will fill up the rest of the time here. Is there a certain genre that appeals to you, or something like?
Well, here's the impetus. I just, from day one in this business, I never, I think I had a really healthy, realistic view of how, the business I'm lucky to be in, have a certain amount of success in, is beloved, but it's also can be quite brutally competitive and cynical. From the jump, I vowed to hijack my acting career, to turn it into film school, every acting experience that I had. And while I was doing this, so I apprenticed myself to many, many gifted filmmakers that I was lucky to work with or meet. And I kept writing, and vowed to earn, collect my 10,000 Malcolm Gladwellian hours and my PhD equivalent after all that time to hopefully transition, And it's actually, I consider it my job as an actor to really know as much about the storytelling process and the filmmaking process as possible.
Along those lines, if you say you want to do more directing, what would director Jeremy say? Like, how would director Jeremy direct actor Jeremy? Or is that too meta? I'm sorry, I do put people on the couch here for some part of the interview. So
no, you're doing great.
We'll dig deep here, but
maybe,
yeah.
Can you paraphrase that?
How would you, if you were directing yourself, if you were starring in a production that you were directing, what would that director think of you as the actor?
What would I think of me?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it's just like we're getting polymorphously existential right now.
Have you ever directed yourself in
any program when you buckle up?
Have you ever directed yourself?
Have I directed? Well, that reminds me. I met a veteran actor who I really admire. I was working with them, and one of the things they advised, I was always asking for advice, is he said you should definitely be prepared to self-direct. And he said he thought actors self-directed more often than not. Because, I've always been really surprised how many filmmakers, directors, really revered and accomplished in many respects, but still didn't really know how to most effectively, in my humble opinion, talk to actors. It's not something you can kind of slip into without really understanding what acting is.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick example if you guys want. You can tell a director hasn't tried to act themselves if they give you an adjective. Like they say, you do the take and they say, okay, do it again. This time I want you to be more angry. It's not helpful at all to an actor. Actors need, and I'm being reductive, but actors need verbs. You're in motion in the scene. You want something. If the scene is well written, the function of it is two characters wanting something and trying to figure out how to get it. So if he or she gives you a verb, this time try to get what you want by being more charming. You try that, and immediately while you're playing that verb, it makes you really focus on the other actor, because you really have to see if you're actually having any success convincing them, or if you're not. And if you're not, then you got to change your verb. Maybe don't try to be so charming, try to be intimidating, etc. So that's a very common one that I hear a lot, is to be more angry. Being more angry, it's two-dimensional. It forces you to be self-aware, and it's just one color. It's like there's no life in it. You know what I mean? The action of the verb.
As you were telling me that, I can't help but think of like actors talking about being directed by George Lucas, and it was always like his direction is always faster and more intense. And that's it. That's like all he gives him. And
I didn't hear that.
What would you do with that if you've worked on a Spielberg production? What if you worked on a George Lucas production and he's like, Jeremy, I need you to faster and more intense?
I would just be profoundly humbled. And if anything he said, any way he wanted to say it to me, I revere him so much.
That's a fair answer.
I would take it and run.
That's a fair answer, yeah. He tends to make some pretty big films.
Yeah. No, he's a pretty wildly brilliant gent. But I take your point. Everyone has their own style. No judgment. I know what works best.
Yeah. No, it's interesting from the director's perspective, like how you would look at that. And so that would be, again, thinking how the actor would act. Thinking what does the actor need in this moment for me to get this, for me to elicit this performance. And that makes a lot of sense. I'm guessing you probably picked that up from Spielberg at some point if you hadn't had it in your DNA already. Let's talk a little bit about Saving Private Ryan. How did
you guys doing okay? Anybody change their mind about the water?
I think we're good. Oh, by the way, if you have any audience questions, there's a microphone over here too, so feel free to jump on that. I could go all night, but if we want to hear from you guys. Let's talk about Saving Private Ryan. We'll get into that. How did that role come into your life? How did that project come into your life?
I had just been lucky enough to break into the business. I started out in a very subterranean independent film world. The first leading role I had in a film, the budget was $75,000 before post-production, and we shot 17-hour days for 6 days a week, and everybody had a nervous breakdown. That was a film called Spanking the Monkey, which was David O. Russell's first film that he wrote and directed, and it was really challenging. It shouldn't have worked, first of all, because I was playing the lead, but also because there was this really challenging Oedipal complex at the heart of the story, and it's also supposed to be a dark comedy. And for some reason, despite the fact that I starred in it, it really worked, and we won the Sundance Film Festival. Which was a great, great honor, and that kind of kicked things off for me. So to get around to finally get a little closer to your question, my friend, I went about the business after that in a really deeply passionate, I think, admirably passionate way, but also very naive, because I found another really dark, independent story, the script that I really wanted to do, that instead of trying to figure out the way the business works, is it's kind of better to keep your momentum going, do one for yourself, do one for the studio. Sometimes they say it like that, but I put all my eggs in this very, very independent film that at the end of the day 13 people saw. And one of them was my friend Sean Penn, who eventually became my friend and mentor, and the other was Steven Spielberg.
Wow.
And he was extraordinarily taken by my performance. I'll try not to be too violently self-deprecating, but against his better judgment, he really liked my performance in that. And it was, again, another vividly idiosyncratic character. The most idiosyncratic I've been allowed to do. I set in the 1960s, very Tennessee Williams-esque, dark. I played this character who lived in a treehouse, was the son of the owner of this ranch, my mother, and I didn't speak, and Vince Vaughn is a stranger. He comes along and he kind of pulls me out of my shell. Anyway, it was a very contained character, very internal, and on the spectrum in a really interesting sense, although back then we didn't really call it that. Right. Anyway, wonderfully against his better judgment, he saw my performance in that, and then that's how he ended up becoming aware of me.
Yeah, I mean, such an unbelievable flick at that time. What research did you do for the role in Saving Private Ryan for Upham?
Well, one of the most terrifying things about being granted that honor of belonging to that family. It's like the two greatest pressures were I really was terrified of letting Stephen down, first of all, because I revered him so much. He was such a God-sized filmmaker and storyteller to me. But also, I felt a really profound responsibility, of course, to the veterans. So I studied, obviously World War II, but war in general, and wanted to really better understand the psyche of what it was really like. That I think is one of the more easily genius things that Stephen tapped into in that film, was recognizing that all the films on World War II we'd seen up to that point showed this flipped ratio of really heroic men. 95% were really pretty heroic, and just a few, the others were killed or not quite as heroic. And this really showed the true brutality of war. And in fact, halfway through the film, Stephen came to me, and he was very incredibly generous in respect to, he'd been watching the film, the dailies, and he said, I'm grateful for what you're doing. I think you're doing well. And I decided I wanted to tell the film more from your point of view, because my character, Upham, wasn't supposed to be in combat, wasn't prepared, shouldn't have been there. And he said, the audience is going to relate to you more. Wow. Right? And also because Tom Hanks was supposed to be more of an enigma. So actually, I'm jumping forward, I apologize from your question, but everything that I do in the film, in the third act, was not in the script. And that was all from Stephen. Wow. Realizing, and that was one of the great lessons he taught me. I actually, to my earlier point about wanting to transition from actor to writer director, is I let Stephen know, I had the audacity to let him know when we started working that I wanted that was a dream of mine. And so he would often just come over and give me a little quick filmmaking lesson. And one of the greatest lessons he taught me was by showing me, but also telling me that, I remember asking him, what's the mistakes that young filmmakers make the most? And he said, one of the biggest mistakes is not knowing what you're getting while you're getting it. And you rewrite the film 3 times in script form, and while you're shooting it, and while you're editing it. So while we were shooting it, he was watching everything, and he really knew what his strengths and weaknesses were, and he diminished all the weaknesses, and he amplified the strengths, and he turned that whole third act into Upham representing the audience. And,
that part I did not know. That's unbelievable. I'm watching that again now in a whole new way, because I recently watched the clips again, and then you saying that, I'm like, okay, now when you just said that, I'm viewing them in a completely different way now. So wow.
And one quick note on that, my friend, if I may. Another thing is. Well, go ahead. Go ahead with your next question.
No, that's it. Listen, this is we can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I didn't know. I was saying he changed everything in the third act, but I didn't even know until the day.
Wow.
But 2 things, like that scene on the stairs, with
yes.
my fellow soldiers. I didn't know I was going to do that so I couldn't rehearse, couldn't prepare. And also, I was just constantly in awe. It sounds hyperbolic, but I was so constantly in awe of Stephen, because even just realizing that and shape-shifting to accommodate that and amplify that strength, but also he created that scene like overnight. And to me, it's one of the most allegorically moving scenes ever in cinema, because of course my character on the stairs, unable to take action, even when the German came down the stairs, unable to take action when my Jewish comrade was upstairs. It parallels the truth that the Allies had the information about the camps and didn't act on it right away. And I just thought, that's a filmmaker, that's a storyteller.
I'm glad you said that, because that was one of my questions, because I was wondering how much of that was an allegory that came into that, because you watch it, you're just blown away by the scene on its own, and then you realize how much this speaks to what was happening at the time. And it's just, it's filmmaking, I think, on another level. It's storytelling on another level. And I think it works because of what Steven did, but now when you said that and you're just going into a cold, and it's like, whoa. And then you pull that off, it makes that scene so much more powerful. So thank you for telling that story. Yeah, we have an audience question right over here. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you for your patience.
Your name and where you're from?
My name is Xavier. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. But no, I'm super interested in the fact that you mentioned directing. And I remember once being in film school, and an instructor kind of told me that it's the actor's job to essentially play the music, and as a director, it's his job to essentially play the orchestra, right? And I guess the way that I kind of relate that to what you mentioned about how you want to direct and stuff like that. When you're playing a character like Daniel Faraday over the course of multiple seasons, years, right? Different episodes, the thing that clicked to me is the fact that you have different directors for those episodes as well. And how does that affect the lifeblood of the character throughout the arc of that? I mean, does that, not only the script that you have and the character's arc and your performance, but then how the director wants to essentially carry that through the story with everything else going on?
Xavier, excellent question, my friend. I'll try to give you an abridged version of it, but it's a great point you raised. Yes, it cannot help but affect the arc of your performance or any of the characters, the arc of the characters over the course of the story or the series or whatever, when you have a different director coming in every week. And I mean, I think you gotta, of course, be a really vividly gifted filmmaker or director just to come in and be everyone else knows everyone and try to. So yeah, you gotta relearn. Ideally, you learn if they're open to it, he or she adapting, trying to figure out. Like, I think the best directors very carefully go around to all, speak to all of the departments, of course, but with respect to the actors, every actor has their own psyche, has their own ability to talk about what their needs are or not. So that as a good director has to shape shift the way they talk to everyone.
Hey, my name's Mark.
We met earlier.
We met earlier. I haven't talked into a microphone in a long time, sorry. I guess my question is, I read a rumor that when you made Rescue Dawn, that you had lost so much weight that Herzog demanded that you no longer lose weight and that you stop losing weight. And you also spoke about these long 17-hour days when you started shooting Spanking the Monkey. How much do you feel like you really have to suffer for your art? And do you ever feel like you have a harder time when you work on bigger productions and you have the large catering and everything's so nice and fluffy? Do you revel in the grime of roles, or does it not matter if you have a star-studded production? Does it not really? Do you have a harder time getting into the character when everything's so nice and comfortable? I guess is my question.
Oh, great question. My old friend. We used to go to different high schools together. So we met an hour earlier. Good to see you again. Great question. I hadn't heard part of that about my great dear friend and mentor Herzog. I don't remember him remember him telling me that I needed to stop. What the way it happened is, I told him I wanted to. For some reason, he said, "No, it's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to go that far."
I'm looking for weight loss tips now.
Pardon me?
I said I'm looking for weight loss tips from Werner Herzog.
From Herzog.
Herzog weight loss tips.
Didn't think this was going to go there.
I love it.
Just took a shift.
Yeah, he said, it was. He's visionary. He's one of the most wonderfully lateral thinkers, so you never know what he's going to say or think. And what I said to him when he, wonderfully against his better judgment, asked me to come aboard the film, as I said, to the earlier question about the responsibility that I felt making Saving Private Ryan, representing the veterans honorably, I felt the same thing in this, because I was playing a prisoner of war, Vietnam War, and I was a POW in a camp, and I wasn't eating, so I felt the best way to honor that, one of the things I could do that would be significant is to lose that weight, and to see, it brings, a really strong sense of verisimilitude when you see somebody who actually looks like they're in a POW camp and doesn't look like they're well fed and just stepped out of a trailer in the air conditioning. So I felt it was entirely appropriate, and I think Werner was quite surprised how much weight I'd lost, but he certainly didn't make a big thing out of it. I think he was surprised, and he had, for whatever reason, just said he didn't think it was necessary, and maybe he was right. But so for me, I felt again it was honoring the memory of these veterans by trying to, feel and portray their experience as much as possible. So to the rest of your question, I think when I was younger, like it's easier for younger actors to really romanticize the idea of really getting deep into a role, and I respect that. It's kind of, as long as you're not hurting someone else or being unkind or ungracious and disrespectful to someone like on the set when you're creating a character, I think whatever it takes to get you in that state. One note I will add is, and I say this as a caution to young actors, like there's this feeling that early on that to play like a tortured character, like a James Dean, that you need to drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes and beat yourself up, and I think that's completely misguided and totally just doesn't serve you. You gotta be like an athlete to be a great actor, a really effective actor. You gotta, just like an athlete, you really be careful what you eat and when you eat it. You don't eat any kind of meal right before you shoot any scene, or at least an important scene. You gotta be ready to give 100% in that tiny window during the day, which you have no control over. Like you'll go in the morning, you're supposed to shoot a scene in the morning, and you have no control. Filmmaking can be so chaotic and takes so much time to set up the camera and the lighting, and you won't work until 5 p.m. And how do you sustain that energy and that the ability to focus and concentrate? So I think all those things that when you're younger you think, wow, I'm playing a character as an alcoholic, I'll just drink. It's a really bad idea.
And for Lost, we love the character on Lost, but do you have any questions? I know there was even the producers said that we would set up storylines that we knew were never going to go anywhere. And as you get to the end, there were so many unanswered questions. Did you have any unanswered questions about Lost that you'd like to have answered if the producers were here?
I would paraphrase it, my friend. I would put it a different way. What they did, everything about these writers were, I don't need to tell you, just like top flight. They're the masters of this business. We were lucky to get this wonderful stable put together by JJ and the others, these magnificent showrunners that we had. And when they started off writing, it wasn't that they didn't know, they were okay weaving it, kind of like The Stand in the beginning, but they did, I think, quite wisely decide at a certain point that we should figure out where we want to end so we can start moving and figuring out the structure of that. So in the beginning, I think there's a lot of really inspired and unforgettable chaos in the story, and you could just feel this beautiful lateral thinking, this incredibly imaginative writing and storytelling that they were doing, and going in all these different directions with these wonderful characters. So I really admire how they started out so successfully with so much chaos, not knowing it, and then figuring out where they wanted to end up, point B, the arc of that overall story, and moving toward that. So
it's an unbelievable series, and you're unbelievable in it as well. What's next for you? What's coming around the corner? What can we look for?
The only thing I can tell you about is I just shot the sequel to The Black Phone. So I did The Black Phone 2. We shot in Toronto for 5 months, and it was a really wonderful experience. Yet another example of, if you want to be successful in this business, surround yourself with really brilliant people. The actors who play my kids are really, if you've seen it, they're really, really brilliant. And Scott Derrickson is really gifted, and Ethan is extraordinary as well. So they make me look good. But
Well, you make a lot of the projects look good as well. Jeremy, we're going to look forward to that and everything else you've got going on. Continued success.
Thank you.
Enjoy TerrifiCon. Thank you for being here. Give it up, everyone, for Jeremy Davies.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming out.
And my thanks to Jeremy for his time during that Q&A. Some great audience questions there as well. If you want to ask questions to next year's panel guests, make your plans now. TerrifiCon takes place August 7th through the 9th. TerrifiCon.com is where you go for all the details. All right, that is it for today. I've got part 5 to get to you listeners, and it's double the fun when 2 guests drop by. It's my Q&A with another guest from Lost, Titus Welliver, also known as the Man in Black. And from the X-Files, Mitch Pileggi will be here. They both appeared on the crime drama TV series Sons of Anarchy. We'll talk about that show. We're going to talk about so much more. Titus Welliver, Mitch Pileggi. My adventure at TerrifiCon continues. Until next time, keep safe, keep reading those comics, and thanks for joining me here in the lair. Comic Book Central, where comic books come to life. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Comic Book Central. All the content and names are registered trademarks and copyrights of the respective holders.